I'm Richard Gearhart, founder of Gearhart Law, full-service intellectual property law firm specializing in patents, trademarks, and copyrights.
And I'm Elizabeth Gearhart, not an attorney. I have my own startups, and I help with marketing at Gearhart Law.
Stay tuned. This show is about starting and growing your business. Welcome to Passage to Profit, the road to entrepreneurship, where we learn why and how ordinary people like you started and grew their business. And we also talk a little bit about the intellectual property that helps them flourish. Today, we have John Jubilee, who's the co-founder of Energized Health, and really looking forward to speaking with him.
And then we have two amazing entrepreneurs, both in the art space. Elaina Mansour with Nijma Fine Jewelry. And wow, her jewelry is gorgeous. You want to hear her story for sure. And then Robert B. Simon with Robert Simon Fine Art. And we're going to ask him what a go-got is, but also he has a story.
As opposed to a go-went, right?
It's a story like I've never heard. So we're really looking forward to the show.
But before we get to our distinguished guests, it's time to talk about your exciting new business journey. 2 in 5 Americans want to start one. So should you start a new business journey? Often our listeners ask, is it important for my business to be unique? Let's turn to our guests to find out how they decided that their business was unique and in what ways. So welcome to the show, John. Tell us a little bit about how your business is unique.
Well, thanks so much. And I'm really honored to be here with both of you, and certainly honored for all the people that are willing to be adventurers. Starting a new business is kind of like going on an Indiana Jones crusade, when you're looking for that secret treasure. And the uniqueness, the uniqueness is a great question, because I think it's both. I don't think people have to be unique. If you're best in your industry, you don't really have to be unique. So I would encourage people that want to do something just that everyone else is doing, just do it better. And I think you can be successful.
That's great. Well, thank you very much for that. Elaina, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
So good to have you here. So what's unique about your business?
So Nijma M, we are a luxury jewelry designer label, and we specialize in what we like to call modernly opulent fine jewelry. And we create capsule collections made from solid gold, and with an emphasis on sustainability practices as well.
That's great. Well, thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Robert, welcome to the show. Tell us about what you think is unique about your business and why it's important.
So good to be here. Thanks so much. I'm an art dealer, and but my background is as an academic, as an art historian, and when I entered the field, there may have been many people doing the same thing that I was doing, which is specializing in old master paintings, old European paintings. But as the world has changed and people who collect tend to go more and more into the contemporary world, I found myself being left as a unique person. There are other people who do similar things to what I do, but I've stayed with my first love, and really what I know most about.
That's great. Great. Elizabeth, tell us about your uniqueness.
Where to start? Well, I do have to agree with John. Every time somebody does something, they're going to do it different than anybody else ever did it, no matter what it is. I have a lot of different things going on, but one thing I do have is a website I've been working on for a while, and I'm going to put information together in a different way than it's being done right now and make it accessible in a slightly different way. So I think that's going to be what's unique about that proposition.
That's great. Kenya, what are your thoughts? What do you think is unique about what you do?
Well, I think, I consider myself a marketer, right? And there's a lot of marketers that are out there in the marketplace. One of the things that I try to help brands and businesses do is focus on their creative strategy, right? So similar to what you were saying about your jewelry line, and similar to what you were saying about your art gallery, and similar to what you were saying about your online directory, right? All of that comes down to how the consumer is going to connect to that content. So here at iHeart, I work with a lot of different businesses and brands to help them kind of fine tune what their creative looks like, right? And really formulate that in a way that helps them stand out, but it also helps them generate ROI on anything that they're putting out from a creative asset standpoint.
Well, that's really great. I'm Richard Gearhart, and I'm the founder of Gearhart Law, and we're an intellectual property law firm. And one thing that we do that's unique is we sponsor a radio show. Not too many law firms are doing that, but I also think that our relationships with our clients are unique. So everybody at the firm has their personality and their way of interacting with the clients, and so I think that's what makes our services unique are the personal relationships that we have with our clients. It's time now to interview our main guest for today, John Jubilee. He is a health expert and the co-founder of Energized Health, a company on a mission to revolutionize and transform the health of people around the world and help people reclaim their lives and move from surviving to thriving. Welcome to the show, John, and tell us a little bit about Energized Health.
Well, I'm delighted. And first of all, I just love to invite all of the listeners, into just the reality of the challenge of health in this day and age. I myself, went on a journey. I call it my journey. It was a quest for health. I spent about 10 years, pretty much doing every diet, every supplement, every program out there. For 10 years. And I actually started out in the banking world and had a couple hundred bank branches when I was 35 years old. And so I had the business success, but I learned something that Steve Jobs never learned. There's only two priceless things in this world, and one of them is health. And unfortunately, we lost Steve Jobs at a very young age because health you can't buy even if you have $1 trillion company. You can't buy your health, and you better value your health. And so thankfully, I spent this 10-year journey. I got frustrated. I was bone on bone in both my knees. I had a 10-inch belly, and just no matter what I did, it just seemed like, I just couldn't lose the fat, couldn't get rid of the high blood pressure, hypertension, definitely couldn't regrow cartilage in my knees. I was told it was impossible. I needed 2 new knee replacements. And I just share that story because how many people out there are suffering from one of those things? My statistics say there's about 80 million Americans that are suffering with joint issues, low energy, high blood pressure, or diabetes. It's about 80 million. That's a lot of your listeners are in the same boat I was. And I don't claim to be a smart guy, but I am a gifted guy. I was born with a photographic memory. I tested out of 12 years of college math in 45 minutes. It doesn't mean you're smart, just means you're gifted. And the only reason I share that is because people always ask me, how in the world did you figure this out? Well, when you can study thousands and thousands of pages of science, retain everything, and then cut to the bottom line, for me, my journey was this revelation of intracellular hydration. Hey, that rhymes. The revelation of intracellular hydration. And that was transformative for me. And so literally I reversed all my health issues. I regrew the cartilage in my knees. But I was very successful. I surely was not going to leave my banking career because, as a man who's a top 1%, in the nation in your field and very successful, I never dreamed I would ever leave banking until the next 10 years, I was helping people for free.
So, John, I got to ask you a question here. So,
yes,
what can you tell us about how this actually works? I went on your website. I saw the testimonials. Very impressive, by the way. But what do you actually do for people? How do you transform their lives?
No, I'm so glad you asked that because I'm a simplifier, Elizabeth. I'm a simplifier of complex things. And by the way, that's like a frustration to me that in this day and age, we have more information than we've ever had, and we're unhealthier than we've ever been. We have more diets than we've ever had, and we're fatter than we've ever been. How is that possible? It's because of your question. It's because all of these programs, they all work for a minute. They work for a minute, but nothing is sustainable. There's nothing that they're giving us that actually is sustainable. And, I don't know if people are listening or hearing, but you can go on the website and look if you can't see me right now. But, when people, I'm 27 years, not one medical doctor visit, 27 years. It's hard to make a healthy cell sick. And I'm a simplifier. So I literally tell people, look, getting healthy at the cellular level, it's kind of like starting your car. You know, when you push the button or turn the key, 37 electronic and mechanical functions happen. You don't have to understand what happened. You're just happy your car started, right?
Right.
And
That's a great
good
point.
thing. That's how cellular health is. I
Okay.
teach people, basically, I'm going to teach you how to turn 6 keys that are going to change your life.
That's
You're going
awesome.
to turn 6 keys that are going to change your life. I'm going to make it so simple. You don't have to understand any of the science. I give people a scientific protocol step by step of what to do.
John, you had mentioned something at first about helping a lot of people for free. And like, you know, this is a show about entrepreneurship and innovation. And some people would hear that as their business model and be like, wow, helping people for free. How can I turn that into something sustainable? So I kind of want to go back to that for a little bit and talk about like how you were able to take that concept and turn it into a full, you know, profitability in terms of how you've been able to grow your business.
Well, and again, listen, I'm just sharing real things with real entrepreneurs. And so, you know, this probably is part of, you know, a unique thing about our company is it did start just really as a noble cause. You know, I really was just trying to help people get healthy. And then I'm not going to name drop who this individual was, but I used to go to a Friday morning meeting with some very high level business guys. And I mean, very high level. And after 10 years of them watching me help all these people for free, they all were looking at me saying, John, you have to go full time in health and wellness, man. You are going to change the world. Like nobody knows what you know. And the main guy, you know, who, you know, he has a company worth, you know, maybe $400 million, has about 800 employees. He just said, John, I will give you my whole staff for free. Like you got to build your business plan and go do this. And that was my turning point when I decided that it really was a calling for me. It was a calling to go make this a business. And again, I'm not bragging. I'm just saying when people are willing to do a noble cause, something that really fills a need that people have, you can build an extraordinary business. We're probably going to be on the Inc. 500 fastest growing companies in America this year. We're somewhere between, you know, I'll just say 50 to 100 million, you know, in just a very short time. You know, once we turned it into a business, we just had explosive growth because we were filling a need. And so it's just coming to that point where you realize, oh, wait a minute, maybe this thing I love and am passionate about, and I would be willing to do it for free. It can be a business. So that was the shift for me.
Well, John, that's great. Can you share with me a couple of your techniques to jumpstart people's health?
Yeah, well, first of all, you know, people have to make a decision. You have to make a decision. You know, my grandparents taught me an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So I would tell people, don't wait until you've had a heart attack. Don't wait till you have the stroke. Don't wait till you have Alzheimer's or dementia. Don't wait. Be proactive. You know, most of the men and women are smart enough to know when my oil light comes on in my car, I go get my oil changed. People take better care of their cars than they do their own human body. So I say, look, don't wait for the light to come on. You know when your oil needs to be changed. Well, in health, it's the same thing. So I can give everybody, if they'll write this down. So men, it's 60%. Men, you need to be 60% hydrated. How many people out there even know how hydrated they are?
I have no idea.
People,
how do you measure hydration for a person?
Yeah, so it's a simple bioimpedance device. And literally for $99, we'll send people a device to measure it. For $99, you can get a test. You know, we'll send you a device. You'll own it for the rest of your life. It measures 12 of your main health markers, including your hydration level. But women should be 55, men should be 60. It's the #1 health marker of human health. It's more important than your A1C. It's more important than your blood pressure, than any blood test you ever get is your hydration level. You are made to be mostly water. And if you're not, you will literally have organs that begin to fail. The kidneys will fail, the liver will fail, the heart will fail, the brain will fail. As entrepreneurs,
well, maybe that's my problem. Is maybe that's why my brain fails so often. I mean, seriously though, looking at you, The show notes say that you're 63 years old. Is that right?
That's right.
And dude, you look like you could be 45. So whatever you're doing, it's right. It's working, right?
Well, it is. And look, entrepreneurs will love this. Do you know that youthfulness and vitality will create opportunities? I recently had a sit-down conversation with Tucker Carlson because Tucker Carlson thought I was 40 years old. And when I told him I was 63 years old, he said, you come back here with a driver's license that shows me you're 63 years old, and I will have a sit-down conversation with you. And I got to have a sit-down with Tucker Carlson because he thought I was 40 years old.
I won't tell you exactly how old I am, but I don't look as good as you do. That's for sure. So
I just, you always hear, well, drink a lot of water. And water just goes right through me. It's like, yeah, I could drink a lot of water, but then, I better put on a diaper or something. I don't know. So how do you keep the hydration in your body instead of going straight through?
All right. You are a brilliant woman. You are a brilliant woman. No, I mean it. Most people don't understand what you just said. And I've had clients that came to me saying they would measure their hydration and they realized we're talking 10 to 15 pounds low, 10 to 15 pounds of hydration low inside their cells. That's a lot. A gallon of water weighs 8.3 pounds. And here these people are drinking 2 gallons a day of reverse osmosis, ionized, high alkaline water. And they're like, how is that happening? And I tell them it's like 2 hard marbles, If you could see, I got 2 hard marbles here. It's like your cells are as hard as a glass marble. You could pour 8 gallons of water over a glass marble. None of it's going to get in there. But this is part of what our science does. That's why it's a patented science. It's a patent pending science that literally we transform that cell to be porous like a sponge. So it actually gets in there. And when it gets in there, for entrepreneurs, think about this. What if I told you you could double your brain power, double your brain capacity, double your creativity? That's what happens when you have intercellular hydration. You double your neurotransmitters and brain synapses activity. Literally double, measurable.
I'm sold. Kenya, are you sold?
I am. And I'm just curious. I have a little bit of a loaded question. How do you feel with everything that's going on with the whole Ozempic craze and the use of, I think it's GLP mechanisms to treat obesity?
No, let me tell you straight up. This is a scientific fact, by the way. And of course, this is my world. So I'm highly in tune and in touch. So doctors across America are being sued right now. They're being sued because Ozempic documented medically, it causes you to lose lean muscle and hydration and gain visceral fat. Do you hear me? You will gain visceral fat, which is the dangerous killer fat. You will lose muscle and hydration. That is a documented fact of what's happening with Ozempic, and it can paralyze your digestive system. So of course you're going to lose weight, but you're going to lose the wrong weight.
Yeah, we've known people who've taken those drugs and they have pretty severe stomach issues, right?
I will admit, I took Ozempic once and I woke up choking to death in the middle of the night because my food didn't go get digested and it was all coming back up my throat. So
yes, because it paralyzed your digestive system.
It
was bad. I was like, one shot and I'm done. And I don't know, I hope I don't get sued for saying that, but that was truly my experience. But yeah, and we have friends whose daughter's stomach got paralyzed by it.
They think that's what it was. I don't know if it was ever proven, but it's
that
consistent
is a
with what you
medical
said.
Fact.
Yeah.
That's a medical documented scientific fact. And that's why I tell people, look, what we have is guaranteed. It's guaranteed and it is sustainable for your whole life. So 27 years later, I never gained a pound. I've gotten stronger every single year. And I wasn't trying to get stronger, by the way. I just found out it's a side effect of intracellular hydration. I just set the world record, 555 pounds, 14 reps on a chest press, which is crazy. It's crazy for anybody of any age to be doing it. But for a 63-year-old guy to doing it, it's just wrong.
That is, John. So, John, is there a supplement with this?
Well, here's what I teach about supplements. I never want people to, get on that supplement train, because supplements are only a supplement. Now, when you're doing what we teach, there are a few supplements I would recommend that will accelerate your success, but they will never cause your success. So there's no magic supplement in the world. I wish there was. If there was, I would be taking it and I would be sharing it, with people. I'd say, hey, let's all do this. But what I've learned is, if your cell is not porous like a sponge, you could take $10,000 a month in supplements and you're just going to pee them all out anyway. They're just all coming out of your body. None of them are getting inside your cell.
So, John, what about the role of exercise? You haven't talked about that. I mean, you did mention that you were able to bench 550 pounds, which is amazing. But do you also recommend regular workouts for people?
Well, interestingly, I actually have a specific cellular health exercise I recommend for everyone to start out with. And then once they get healthy at the cellular level, which only takes 88 days, by the way, come on, it's a snap. In 88 days, you can transform every cell in the human body in 88 days. And then I teach what's next. So it just so happens for me, my what's next is this year, I'm going to do 600 pounds, by the way. I'm going to do a 600-pound chest press. My mom, who's in her 80s, her what's next, she just won a 5K in her 80s. She came in first place.
Well, your 88-day thing, that's almost 3 months. So, Richard, we got our summer project.
There you go.
Sign me up.
Okay.
There you go. But nobody needs to do anything to get healthy.
You're recommending this for me, right? Okay. I get it.
We're doing this a couple.
So I'm on your website and I'm just trying to find, what is the protocol? Because I don't see a pill anywhere. I don't see a drink anywhere. I don't see a powder anywhere. So what is the regimen like for this program and the transformation?
Yeah, well, the reason you don't see it on there, all of our clients sign an NDA.
Mm-hmm.
So when people say, what's the protocol? They'd say, I'd tell you, but I'd have to kill you, because they do all sign the NDA. But I can share with people, look, it's as simple as 6 simple things. And the 3 core things are, we actually teach people one cellular health exercise that they do 1 hour a day, but it's so easy they could do it while they're making their calls on their phone. They could put their headset on or just talk on their phone. They could still do it while they're doing that. I have teachers that do it in the classroom while they're teaching class. One cellular health exercise, 1 hour a day. I teach people to give up 2 things only during the 88 days, and that's sugar and white flour. Now, they can still eat sweets. They can eat monk fruit. They could eat honey. They could eat stevia. You can still have sweets, but you just don't have pure white sugar or white flour. White flour, when it touches human saliva, turns into pure glucose, and that is the only nutrient to a cancer cell. And so we want to make sure if people have any cancer cells, we're just going to starve those cancer cells to death in 88 days, and they won't have any more in their body. Then they can add sugar back in.
That's great.
Moderation.
Yeah. Okay. So we have to take a commercial break now. We're talking with John Jubilee from Energized Health, and you're listening to Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart. Stay tuned. You'll be hearing about secrets of the entrepreneurial mind. That segment is coming up, so you want to hear that. And we'll be back right after this commercial break.
Well, welcome back, listeners. You are listening to the Passage to Profit show with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart and our media maven, Kenya Gipson. And we have been talking to John Jubilee, who has a fascinating new breakthrough in health. And he has told us two of the first things that he does with people in his program. He was about to get into the third when we unfortunately had to go to break. So I've been sitting here on pins and needles. What's the third one, John? So please continue our conversation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the first 3 things, and again, there's a lot of details to each one of these, but at the high level, super simple. It's for your nutrition. You're just going to take out sugar and white flour. And the good news is, think about it. That means you could still eat your tacos or burritos. You just use a corn tortilla. You could still have spaghetti and meatballs. You just use a vegetable pasta or a protein pasta. You can eat everything in moderation. That's why this is sustainable. I tell people, you know what? God gave you taste buds because food tastes good. And that's why we can't stay on any of these diets, because eventually we all want to eat something that tastes good. We're made to enjoy food and to enjoy life. So the nutrition is you just give up sugar and white flour. The exercise is a 1 hour 1 hour cellular health exercise. It's so easy. You could, by the way, we have people in wheelchairs that could do this exercise, so anyone
Wow.
could do it.
We would love for you to share sort of how your business model works. How do you find clients?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so we had a unique path. We originally started out 100% word of mouth referral, because I spent 10 years helping thousands of people for free. And of course, they would all tell their friends and family. And so I really had a lot of clients that just came in, again, 100% word of mouth referral. And then interestingly,
So did you, when you were helping all these people, were you doing it online? Did you have seminars? What was the actual way that you did that?
no, it was all old school. It was literally just face to face. It was face to face. I would just literally meet people, and I had a Word document. So I had my protocol written out on a Word document. So I would literally hand them a Word document and I would tell them what to do. And then I would give them my cell phone and say, hey, if you need anything other than this, just check in with me. So again, this was just 10 years of, this was not a business model. This was just, I want to help transform people's lives. And so that was my only way, was good old fashioned. I would just meet people, talk to them, and hand them a Word document and get them started. And then when it turned into an actual business, a little bit ironic, people would never imagine on radio, what kind of health and wellness program starts on radio. They can't even see me. They can't even see if I look healthy or not. And so I started on radio, and it just so happened my first day on radio, I had some clients from California that were live streaming the radio show, and they got so excited and they said, John, we're going to build you a website and we're going to do this and do that. And so literally these clients built a website while I'm on a 2-hour radio show. Like by the time I got off the radio show, they already had my website, set up. And immediately my business just, began to blossom like overnight on radio. I just was doing a 2-hour radio show on Super Talk 99.7 out of Nashville, Tennessee. And then so it grew into, basically a multi-million-dollar company overnight, just on radio. And then I would go do, it got where I couldn't keep up. And so then I started doing live seminars. And so as my show began to grow, I would just go to kind of the 3 cities, that were near Nashville. And so I would go to 3 cities. I'd go once a month and I'd do a live presentation. And I had no PowerPoint. I had no slides. I just stood in front of a room of 300 to 600 people at a time. And I just shared my story, my journey. I shared my clients' testimonials, and people just would sign up.
That's incredible. What divine direction is that? I mean, I'm thinking about like the power of radio and how we talk to people about broadcasts a lot of the times. And it's just remarkable to hear that, things like divinely were orchestrated for you and you kind of stepped into this. Do you feel that there's any moments where you have felt challenged in terms of building your business? Because I mean, it sounds like it was kind of smooth sailing, but as a business owner, we know that we run into things that aren't always so great.
No, you know what? I literally walked through the abyss multiple times, because I am a very spirit-led person, and I really do believe this was a divine calling of God. And I in my early days, I definitely was a very over trusting And so the business was so blossoming and so big, you can imagine, kind of the vultures were circling, right? And so I would have these people come in and say, oh, I could take you to the next level. Well, I always looked at the next level as, oh, good, I can help more people.
Right.
They looked at it as, oh, I can make a lot of money. So 4 times in my journey, four times my whole business was stolen right out from under me.
Wow.
Millions and millions of dollars each time. And I kept making the same mistake, over and over of just trusting somebody, that to me, I looked at it as good. I get to help more people, but these other people were greed motivated. And so I finally learned my lesson. And, I had a divine, I did have a divine appointment happen. One of my very famous clients, it's a man named Michelle Shane from Canada, lives in Beverly Hills, him and his wife, Ellen. They invited me to come to California to give me a national television show and to have four days of meetings. And unfortunately, that was one of the times I had literally just had multiple millions of dollars taken out of my bank account, and I was totally cleaned out. Thank God I've been debt-free for about 30 years. So I didn't owe any money, but I had only the money in my pocket because I don't even use credit cards. I use debit cards. And so I had about $80 in my pocket. And these people called me to come to Los Angeles for 4 days of meetings, and I couldn't afford a bus ticket to Los Angeles. And so I'm sitting there chuckling, and my friend looks at me who's sitting across the table. He said, "What's going on?" I said, "This is so funny." I go, "I think this is a real deal for a national television show, but I can't afford a bus ticket to Los Angeles."
Wow.
And he said, "John, I got airline miles. I'll give you airline miles." I said, "David, that's so sweet." I said, "But it's 4 days." He goes, "I've got points at the Santa Monica Sheraton." He goes, "You could use my points." I said, "I have to eat." He goes, "It's concierge level. It's free food." I said, "I'm in."
Where do
Wow.
I get a friend like that? So, John, I'm not going to ask you about number 3 because we don't want you to get ripped off again. And we want to respect your NDAs. So,
Yeah, and
how
number
did
3 is hydration. Number
Oh,
3 is
okay.
hydration.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's the way to actually, so I actually teach people a way to actually drink the water so it can actually uptake in the cells.
Okay, I guess I don't know how to drink water right. This is interesting. But so I don't know, how were people able to steal that money from you? I mean, this is something everybody has to watch out for. You hear these stories all the time, but how did this happen?
Yeah, so here's what so my trust level, yeah, so when you allow someone to be in at a vice president level or higher in your company, and you allow them to be a signer on your account, you're
Oh.
authorizing them to control money. Yeah, so people can protect themselves by, just some simple things of number 1, make sure you have the right people. Number 2, use a double signature process, so that nobody can do that to you.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, as your business grows, if you've had a big business, you do have to start trusting people with the money at some point. Otherwise, you're going to spend all your time authorizing payments, right? But you have to find the right balance too, and try to put some checks in and make sure that nothing really bad happens. But
Well, and now, thankfully, my wife, Chelsea, so when we say we're co-founders, we really married our sciences of intracellular hydration and of my wife is an expert of cellular trauma. And this is something people never talk about, is cellular trauma. You could eat totally the right diet, the right exercise, and still never get healthy if you don't deal with your cellular trauma. So this is all based upon, the ACE study that basically shows things that happen from us from when we're an infant to 18 years old can get locked in our cells. So if we've had verbal abuse or child abuse, or our parents get a divorce, or now my wife and I have actually had some very high level trauma. My wife was sexually abused for 5 to 6 years consistently. I had 5 friends murdered. Both of my brothers were murdered. We had some high level trauma. Both of us had divorced parents. And so when you've walked through those things and you've learned how to deal with cellular trauma and get that out of your cells to actually have true joy and contentment and peace, you can impart you have impartation, not information, impartation. Impartation is 1,000 times more powerful than information because you've lived something, you can impart that into someone else. And that's what we do, Chelsea and I at Energized Health. We give impartation to alleviate cellular trauma in people, which is a whole nother level.
That's really very interesting. So, what do you think led to your success? Like I know you had a lot of people interested, but if somebody's starting a new business and they're trying to gauge the interest or the success or whatever, like what really do you think made you successful? Or is there a characteristic of yours?
Well, I'm going to say two things. I'm going to say two things, and everybody just please stay with me, on this, because I'm just going to tell you the truth. So the number one thing, but they go together. You can't have one without the other. So nobody can just say, oh, I just want to thank God because God blessed me. You can't just say that because God blesses the work of your hands. So absolutely, we have been tenacious. We have been relentless. We work hard. We work smart. We are always up leveling. We have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on personal coaching of ourselves. We've invested in ourselves. We invest in our health. We live what we teach. But I would absolutely say the number one thing is we are divinely directed and we follow that divine direction and we step into it and we step into it boldly. And sometimes, God will tell you to do something that sounds absolutely crazy and illogical. But if you're willing to do that as a business person, along with being relentless and tenacious and to have a work ethic and to honor yourself with your health and invest in yourself, the biggest investment any entrepreneur can do, invest in yourself, in your health and your own coaching. Invest in yourself.
That I agree.
You are your greatest resource.
I agree 100%. And we've done a lot of crazy things, right, Richard?
I love what you say about, the spiritual context of things. And I was going to ask you, do you think your work is helping people do a spiritual reset? I know it's about the hydration and I know it's about the nutrition and the cellular work that you're doing, but a lot of this is spiritual.
It absolutely is. It's all three. It's all three. Now, people get all excited about the science and, because no one's ever heard of intracellular hydration and it's measurable and they can see, oh my word, my hydration's going up, and they see the efficacy of, my hair and my skin looks amazing and my brain is so sharp and my energy's up. But we absolutely say you cannot disconnect the mind, the body, and the spirit. They are absolutely interconnected. And you have to have health in all three to have real health.
That's great, John. So a really amazing discussion. That's John Jubilee. John, how can people get in touch with you?
Super simple. Just right through our website. It's Energized, ENERGIZED, Energized Health, energizedhealth.com.
All right, John. Well, that's great. Now it's time for IP in the News. What is on the IP in the News table today?
Well, this is an article written by Aaron Weeks. And there was a restaurant in Indiana, Evansville, and it had a potato pizza. That sounds pretty good to me. But the name did not work because they named it Tater Swift.
Tater Swift. So obviously it's a play on the singer, right?
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift. Oh my gosh. And so what happened?
Well, they got a cease and desist letter. So
a cease and desist letter is a letter from a lawyer, right? Saying, stop using Tater Swift for your pizzas.
So can you explain how they would have known about this?
That's a really good question. I guess they have people who are monitoring the internet. It's a small shop,
Right.
But lots of times brand companies will monitor social media to see if there's any intellectual property violations. That's probably how it happened, right?
And this was a trademark violation.
This was a trademark violation. No lawsuits were filed, however, so the owner of the pizza parlor, it's called Casey's Dugout, just withdrew the name and changes it to what, the potato pizza or something?
So I want to go have a potato pizza. I mean, I know they made a mistake.
I have no interest in that.
It's not the same as a Tater Swift, right?
So anyway, it's time for our guest to comment on this. So John, you get to be the first one at bat here from Casey's Dugout. What do you think about this?
Well, I lived 20 years in Tennessee, and I saw Taylor Swift grow up. And now if anyone ever actually called her Tater, now there is boys in Tennessee named Tater. There is boys named Tater. They call him Tater in Tennessee. But if I was that guy, I'd say, listen, when someone calls Taylor Tater, then you know what? Take me to court. But in the meantime, I'm going to keep Taylor Swift on there because I think that's a great name, and I think he could win that in court.
So Robert, welcome to the show again. What do you think about this interesting tidbit?
Well, it's very sad that puns and humor are threatened. Never mind Taylor Swift's reputation, which I don't think is in any doubt whatsoever. For many of us, such things are just make our day a little happier, and I'm sad to see that. But I think Casey's probably gotten some nice publicity from it, and here we are talking about it, and far away and across the nation. So good luck to him.
Those are great sentiments, and it is true that sometimes people turn these legal situations into publicity for their company. Whether they did that intentionally, probably not, but I think they were just trying to have a little fun. So
Sounds like it.
Yeah. Elaina, what are your thoughts about Tater Swift pizza?
My fellow guests, I think, really hit the nail on the head with this one. I was going to say the creativity for that name.
Yeah.
I love it. I love a good play on words. So creativity, 2 thumbs up. We're all talking about it. They're getting some great publicity there. Hopefully people are going to come in. They're going to want to try their food and the ambiance of the restaurant. I think that's great.
Yeah.
I think it would be a little more challenging if it were a rapid seamstress calling it Taylor Swift, but
Oh, no. Kenya.
Oh, I think it was cute and it's clever. And I know sometimes with things, I'm just like, can't you just let people live? It's like you have all this money, you have all of these things. It's like, are you really going to be? Is your brand that compromised because someone's selling a pizza called Tater Swift? I don't know. I just feel like there's enough to go around.
Yeah.
keeping the lawyers employed.
I guess, and everybody says you got to protect your brand, but in this case, she's got plenty of money.
Yeah, and it's a potato.
And nobody's going to confuse Taylor Swift with a pizza, right? It's.
Well, she probably didn't even know about it
She probably
because
didn't.
she has people to handle that.
Right.
Take a commercial break right now. You're listening to Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart, our special guest, John Jubilee. And we'll be back with more right after this. Welcome back, everybody, to Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart. Stay tuned. Coming up next, we have Secrets of the Entrepreneurial Mind coming up soon. So you want to hear that. But before we get to our distinguished presenters, Kenya Gipson, what's on the table for Power Move today?
So I'm really excited about Power Move because I don't know if everyone's been keeping up with this whole Kendrick Lamar and Drake debacle that's been going on. But they've had a recent rap battle that has been going, in my opinion, in either direction. However, I think the most important thing that came out of the situation is the power that it's given to the content creators on YouTube. So recently, Kendrick Lamar just released his copyrights to his music to allow online content creators to be able to have use of his songs and be able to monetize the content that they're putting up on digital platforms. And I thought that was, very generous, right? Mm-hmm. And empowering to the creator community. So Kendrick Lamar is our power move for today.
That's great. Good to know.
That's really awesome because a lot of times, this piece of music would just go so perfect with what I'm talking about, but I can't use it, right? So that is really awesome.
Elizabeth, tell us about your projects.
Okay, well, here goes. I'm going to go as fast as I can because I have a lot going on right now. So everything I'm doing now is pretty much geared towards podcasting. So I do have, of course, Passage to Profit, which we love doing. I have the Jersey Podcats podcast with Danielle Woolley, which is about cats, and we're having a lot of fun with that. And then I started a meetup with Stacy Sherman, and Richard, of course, is involved. And it's for podcast and YouTube creators, and it's at our law firm in Summit, New Jersey, in person, but also on Zoom. So we get a lot of people. We get 100 people every month for this, probably, or close to that. And a lot of really great discussions. But it's a lot of work doing a meetup, but I'm enjoying that. Are you enjoying it, Richard?
I'm having a great time.
And
it is a lot of work.
It is, but I'm doing most of it. But Richard always shows up, and he always fiddles with the tech.
No,
and
you write
makes
all
sure-
the emails. I do all the heavy lifting. So.
Oh, please. So anyway, and then, of course, we're remodeling the podcast studio in the upstairs of the law firm building, and that's a fun project, too. It's great to see the transformation. We're excited to see what it'll be like when it turns out. We'll have a grand opening when it's all done, and we have some exciting ideas for that. Things that have not been done before with podcast studios that we're not going to talk about till we launch.
It's a trade secret.
Yes. So enough about me. I am dying to talk to Elaina Mansour with Nijma M Fine Jewelry. She's wearing the jewelry in the studio today. I'm just going crazy. I'm so jealous. It's gorgeous stuff. So hi, welcome.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you so much.
So tell
Thank you.
us how you got started. What's special about your jewelry? I've already seen that, but yes, please.
Thank you. So how I got started. So my formal training is actually, I'm a naturopathic doctor. So it's in a completely different arena, completely different field. And, I graduated and I practiced and I loved it. Someone can ask me about it and I will still talk about it with such glee, if you will. But there was a part of me, there was this artistic, creative side that wasn't getting the outlet that I felt like it needed. And I've always been fascinated with jewelry. I grew up in a Middle Eastern household. My background, I'm Lebanese. So in that culture, I think there's a lot of appreciation for fine jewelry and jewelry in general and the celebration of its craftsmanship and everything that kind of revolves around it. So I was inspired by, I remember my mom used to always wear this beautiful blue topaz pendant, and it had a beautiful thick yellow gold bezel around it, and she'd wear it every single day. And it was like a bold piece. And she'd wear it with this braided gold chain with a big spring ring in the front. It was just, they went together really nicely. And I remember she'd wear it every day. And it served as inspiration, as almost like to celebrate the everyday with the pieces that you love. And jewelry has such a personal connection for people, right? That it often holds memories or stories, or it was gifted to you by someone special to you, or you gifted it to yourself. You bought it for yourself, right? Or to mark a special occasion. So that really inspired me to kind of move into this direction here. And so as, Nijma M, I love how when you bring different concepts together, whether different aesthetic styles or different just ideas in general, how that creates this duality. And I really want to, with the jewelry, celebrate that and the magic that comes from bringing different aesthetics together, specifically for jewelry. So I want the wearers to be inspired by them, to wear them, to style them the way that they love to style them, that expresses their expression, their own self-expression. And it's that, those pieces that they can come back to all the time. They're sophisticated, they're classy, they're timeless, but they also have this little bit of this modernness to them. They're a little ritzy, they're a little cool, and bringing that together to create this idea of this modern opulence meant for everyday wear.
That sounds great. So how did you get, what was designing your first piece of jewelry like?
It was so exciting, to be honest with you. It was so exciting. I sat pencil and paper, and I'd taken a course through GIA, through their continuing education. And so, I was able to get some of the fundamentals, the basics. And I remember I sat down with a sketch pad and a pencil, and I just started. I let my imagination do its thing. And I think that that's really important in entrepreneurship, in general, right? To kind of let your creativeness flow regardless of what kind of industry that you're in. So I remember sitting down, and one of the first things I sketched was a hand chain. And I have it here today. It was one of my, I wanted something that was unique, that was kind of, spoke to my culture a little bit as well. Something that was still aesthetically pleasing, but still practical for everyday wear. That's important as well for my pieces to not only, tell the story that I want them to tell, but also be practical for everyday wear. Because if a piece isn't practical to wear, then you don't really get full function out of it. You know what I mean?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So I do want to talk,
Yes.
and then we need to get to Kenya, but I do
Yeah.
want to talk about the earring clip that you invented.
Oh, sure.
Because, so she has these earrings that it's hard to describe, but they kind of go up your earlobe, but she has like a bobby pin on the back of it, so it stays in place. So how did you come up with that?
So this is an earring. It's a crawler, an ear crawler, basically, or an ear climber. So I wanted, to design kind of that kind of style of earring. And I remember sitting down and I've seen some, in person, and and I've tried them on. They just didn't sit the way that I wanted. They didn't sit on the ear properly, or then they'd fall because it kind of climbs up your earlobe a little bit. And so when I was designing these specifically, I'm going to hold them up to the camera there, kind of get a little peek. So the back here, it's a long post back. So, normally if you're wearing a stud, you have a post back and there's a butterfly and it holds it in your ear.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted something that was going to follow the contour of the earring, basically follow the contour of the ear so that it sits on the ear, so that it's not moving. You can be exercising, you can be bending down, you can be whatever you're doing, and it's not moving. And that was important. That was an important part of that practicality piece, right? To make sure that they're going to stay where you put it, that they're going to stay where you have placed them on your ear.
Yeah, I think it's ingenious.
Oh,
Brilliant.
thank you. Thank you.
I love what you said earlier about like the personalization and like the connection between people and their jewelry. So a little fun fact about Elvis Presley. He
Yes.
used to wear all of his jewelry in his house, like all the time, like whether
love
he had
that.
company. I love that too, right?
Yeah.
So curious about like
Yes.
personalizing jewelry. Do you do personalized like collections in terms of like connecting someone to a particular piece? Do you do particular designs? Like how does your whole design process work?
So if a client came to me and they said, we want to do something custom and we want to incorporate a specific type of stone, for example, because it means something to me, or we want, or this type of craftsmanship technique, absolutely, that's such an important part of jewelry, as you mentioned, that we would absolutely work and make sure that they got exactly what they wanted to create that custom piece. Right now, my collections I'm designing the collections. So every piece has a story, or every piece, something has inspired me to kind of make them. So I think part of the allure of jewelry, I think, and the storytelling that comes with it is not just, I think part of it is the backstory of the piece and of the designer and why they designed it. But it's also what adds to the story, I think, is that cherry on top, is then what it means to the wearer, right? And they add then their own meaning to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that part is so beautiful, I think, when it comes to jewelry.
Awesome.
I agree. I have this one necklace. I'm not wearing it today, but I wear it a lot. That Richard bought for me, I don't know, 15 years ago, a long time ago. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and we went on a trip, and I thought I had lost it.
Oh, no.
I know, because I didn't wear it every day. And I just something kept telling me, look in the suitcase again, look in the suitcase. And anyway, I found it. And it was, I almost started crying. It was a huge emotional moment.
Absolutely.
To realize I still had this necklace that I love. I get a lot of compliments, and people are always asking me if they can have it. I must tell them no. But I love that you use so much blue topaz and gold together. I love that combo.
It's a great combination. And the inspiration for me for the blue topaz was, again, the piece that my mom wore all the time. And I think it was like a dedication to her, if you will. So I wanted certain pieces to have that. The Evil Eye necklace that I'm wearing too, the stone in the center is a blue cabochon. The way that it's cut, it's called cabochon, blue topaz stone. So I wanted certain pieces to have that as well.
Your ring is great.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would encourage people to go on the website. What is the website quickly?
It's Nijma M, so Nijma, then the letter M, finejewelry.com.
And how did you get that name?
So Nijma is actually my middle name,
Oh.
and it's Arabic, and it means star. So it was, I wanted that, I wanted a piece of my cultural background because it was such a part of the story for establishing the jewelry line. So that's where that comes from.
I get star vibes from you. Like so when we met up,
You're too kind.
I do. When you came up,
Well, listen to her. She knows.
I do. So when you came up into the hallway, like I obviously hadn't seen you before. Right?
Yes.
I only had saw your name, but like you had that. You know, like when you see or you meet famous people, you had that too. I was like, oh, that's true. I didn't know you were here for this show. I thought you were here for another iHeart show. I was like, oh,
Kenya, you're making me blush. Thank you.
For real. Yeah.
You're so kind. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Well, the jewelry business is pretty competitive. I think you have to have a lot of courage and confidence to get into it, right? Because you're competing against other famous designers and big jewelry houses with big budgets, and so we'll kind of talk about that a little bit. I mean, were you ever nervous about getting into the business?
Absolutely. Like I still to this day will wake up sometimes and think, what have I done? But like in a way that almost still fuels me to keep going. Right. But you're absolutely correct. It is one of those industries, especially if you want to establish yourself, as a fine jewelry designer, solid gold jewelry. It takes time. It takes years. And you're trying to, you're building. First of all, it's discoverability, right? To make sure that your target market, your clientele, who you're trying to reach knows you, right? That's a huge part of it. And that takes time, especially when you're trying to build a luxury brand. So it's a huge roadblock. Absolutely. That's a huge challenge. And I think depending on the market and where you are also makes a big difference as well, right? In Canada specifically, people love the big names, and the big names are great, don't get me wrong. But other parts of the world, they like the small, independent, that have a little bit of a different story to tell, which is nice. So it's absolutely full of challenges. It's very, very competitive, right? And we're also in very interesting economic times. So that also adds a little bit as well.
Well, when we were on our pre-call, you were talking about Canadian diamonds, that you were using Canadian diamonds in your jewelry. I didn't know Canada had diamonds.
Yes.
And so
We do.
Tell us a little about that.
Sure. So that's actually my upcoming collection, which should be out hopefully in about a month and a half from now. So I wanted, as part of the sustainability piece, there's no set definition for sustainability. So it's always this ongoing process. So part of that, I think, and kind of sitting down and really trying, to figure out what I wanted for this next collection. I was like, you know what? The Canadian diamonds are, I think, they're not spoken about.
No,
they're just,
right,
like you're saying, like they don't know.
I haven't heard.
Are they white diamonds?
They are.
Okay.
Yes, they are. So we have a handful of diamond mines in the Northwest Territories, north of the country. There's a few still active to this time right now. And the diamonds coming out, it's so fascinating. The diamonds often have, the color, the cut, the clarity are often a little bit of a higher quality than others. Of course, you have normal variability. Every Canadian diamond also has a laser inscripted identification number. So the traceability of that diamond is basically from mine to customer because they're all certified Canadian diamonds. So you know where they're coming from, which is great, which is a great part to add to the sustainability piece, right? Just to say that they're conflict free, for example, or they're, I think it's being as transparent as you can when it comes to the sustainability piece. But yes, Canadian diamonds, I'm so excited to feature them. And part of being a Canadian brand, I wanted to bring as many of those elements in as possible.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing. I think it's I'm sure it's great for your customers in Canada. They can take a certain amount of pride in sort of supporting the local diamond jewelry industry.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. And I think one of the mines up north, the De Beers Group is actually a large partner in that mine, owning that mine with another Canadian company. And so it's nice to see that, there are different large players in the industry that are seeing the value in those diamonds.
De Beers is everywhere, right?
Yes.
Same grading system as other diamonds?
So you can still have them GIA, for example, GIA certified, Canadian diamonds as well. And then there's that extra kind of Canadian certification. There are different companies that will do it, similar to GIA, but more specifically for Canadian diamonds. And that it comes with a certificate like GIA, and it'll specifically show you that inscription number. And that that laser inscribed number in the diamonds is only seen with magnification. So it's not you don't see with the naked eye, but
There's not a big Canadian flag stamped on the front of the diamond.
No, that would definitely add an extra element of. Yeah.
So you are selling your jewelry from your website?
Yes, that's correct.
Are there other places you're selling?
And on First Dibs as well.
Oh,
online with First Dibs.
And how are you marketing this? How are you getting? Because it is beautiful. I'm sure when people
Thank
see
you.
it, they buy it if they have the money. So how are you getting the word out?
So right now it's mainly social media, some PR, being featured in some gift guides, which has been really great. Recently in Fashion Canada in the recent April issue, which was fantastic. So it's a process for sure, right? And finding kind of the right way to get to your customer.
And how many pieces do you make? So like those earrings that I'm in love with. How many sets of those do you have?
So right now these ones, so the first manufacturer that I use, actually most of the pieces from my first collection were made here in New York City, which was very exciting. And an important thing I think in anyone thinking about going into the jewelry industry is if you're not manufacturing it yourself, you're not hand making it, and you're outsourcing that, is to ask some manufacturers have a minimum order quantity. So that means you have to order a certain amount, and it differs between fine jewelry and costume jewelry. So these specific pieces, I have about 5 left. These ones. So these ones required a little bit more of a minimum order. So now also as part of that sustainability piece is also switching the business model to make to order. Every piece is made to order, 2 weeks from everything is handmade from a team in Montreal that I've been working with for the last couple of years. And I've had the pleasure of going to see, them in person and to see how they do. Everything is in-house, which I love. So
Elaina,
yeah.
We are getting to the end of the segment here,
Yes.
but I did want to ask you a question about your new line that you're launching soon.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So our new collection is going to feature recycled 18-karat yellow gold, featuring the Canadian diamonds that we've been speaking about. And what I've been wanting to do with those diamonds, and I've been, speaking with the manufacturers with this, we're going to reverse set them. So they're round cut diamonds, round brilliant cuts, and we're going to reverse set them, which means that the cullet, which is the pointy part of the diamond, is going to be facing upward. So it's going to still give it, the pieces are, for example, one is a tennis necklace. So instead of having the stones set normally in the tennis necklace, they're going to be set the other way. So you're still going to get the brilliance of the diamonds, but just from a different angle. And I think a diamond itself has, its angles are all beautiful and they all kind of tell a story in a sense. So now you get to see it from the other point of view, and it gives it a little bit of a modern feeling as well.
That's creative.
That's really
you.
cool. That'd be interesting to see.
Yeah. I'm excited for the launch of it.
It's a look for sure.
Exactly.
Mhm.
It's a look. Still kind of that classic, diamonds and gold. That's like the classic combination, right? But just set a little bit differently.
So do you ever ask influencers to wear your jewelry? Like, is that one avenue you'd pursue?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I could see, we have to wrap up, but I could see an influencer going, I want that. I've never seen that before. I'm going to be the first one to wear that down the red carpet.
Yes.
Yeah.
We would be happy to do that. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So what is your website again?
Nijma M Fine Jewelry, NIJMA FINEJEWELRY.com.
Well, thank you very much, Elaina. And now I'm going to pass the mic, so to speak, to Kenya Gipson so she can introduce our next guest.
Really excited to have in studio with us today, Mr. Robert Simon. How are you today?
Doing great, thank you.
So thank you for coming to Passage to Profit, right? We have a mutual contact, right, who connected us. And I was so happy to meet you at the Winter
Show, which
Yes.
is the premier art and antique and jewelry exhibition in New York. It takes place in January and is an international destination, basically, for collectors and museums. Unfortunately, for some people, it comes usually in the worst week of weather in New York, but it's wonderful to get in out of the cold and see some beautiful things.
And you had a beautiful exhibit there yourself.
Yeah, thank you. We did. We had an exhibition of a mixture of old master paintings, American paintings, some highlighting some overlooked areas in the collection. Included some works of and depicting people, mixed race people, and also works created by mixed race Americans for the most part. That was kind of a complement to the usual, I should say, European old master paintings that are my usual focus.
That's amazing. You had a painting there that was very interesting. It was a profile of a young man who was of mixed race that I connected with.
Yeah, well, we had a couple of things. One was a portrait of someone from a free man of color from New Orleans from about 1840. So this is before the Civil War, when there's a much more liberal society in New Orleans, and the artist was a mixed race painter who then depicted a very distinguished looking young man who is there in New Orleans. The artist is named Julian Hudson, a very rare artist. And then we also had some silhouettes, which were done by an artist named Moses Williams, who was born enslaved into the household of the Charles Willson Peale, great American painter, but who was manumitted, became a member of the family, and was the primary maker of silhouettes at the Peale Museum, which was established by Charles Willson Peale in Philadelphia. So this is at the very, very beginning of the 19th century.
That's great. So how long have you been an art dealer, and how did you get started?
Well, I mean, I think a little different from the entrepreneurs that you speak to, whatever. My entrepreneurial beginning as a separate, my own business began when I was 45. And that's because you can't see on the radio, but that's about 25 years ago. And so my beginnings really things began for me as a student in college, then in graduate school, studying art history. I have a doctorate in art history. I taught briefly. I worked at the Metropolitan Museum as a research fellow. I worked as an appraiser. I've done a lot of adjacent jobs in the art world. I then worked for some art dealers before. And I should say also, I worked in summers and also for a while, for a year or two, as a traveling salesman. It's one thing I think I can impart to the potential entrepreneurs out there is that doing a lot of different things can often leave you with no real direction in your life. But for me, I felt that everything that I did in some way contributed to what I'm doing today, and also gave me enough confidence. At one point, it took, I'm not wasn't a 20-year-old entrepreneur, but a 45-year-old one, to go out on my own and start doing what I was doing for myself. And I think it's a huge leap to do that, because you're casting aside anything that resembles regular salary. Of course, there are other issues that are so important today, like health insurance and just the prospect of where you're going to pay your bills, and start to do something on your own. But that's really how it came to be. I think the initial stages when I was teaching, well, I couldn't really get a good job in a place I wanted to live in the world of academia. The same was in the museum profession. But these were, I wouldn't say they were hindrances, but they sent me on different courses that resulted in somehow having a different a set of skills that I think have served me well.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that entrepreneurism is a young person's game, and certainly there's a lot of truth in that, right? Because you are earlier in life, you can afford to not be successful right away. You don't have a lot of financial obligations. Sometimes you don't have family obligations. And so it's easier to take a chance when you're younger. But on the other hand, if you're older, you have more experience, you have more training, you've seen maybe how the art business works from a lot of different perspectives, and hopefully that makes you also gives you a good chance of success, whereas somebody who's just beginning in the art world may make a lot more mistakes than you would.
No, I think it's true. So I think you take. I mean, part of my skill set, probably the most important one, is doing research, and that's something that I've taken from my time in college and graduate school. But also, as much as I didn't really enjoy being a traveling salesman, I was selling eyeglass frames, which I didn't have any particular sympathy for. The experience of dealing with people, of traveling, of and of transacting in that way is something that I've been able to put into my current my business for the last 25 years.
So you don't want a
Okay.
painting, but maybe you want some eyeglasses here.
Okay, so
Whatever.
Robert,
Yes.
you opened the door,
Yeah.
like they'll say in court. You brought in the topic. We got to talk about it. The lost Leonardo.
So, yes, indeed. Well, I should first say that one of the things that I do basically in my work is study paintings that are anonymous. I mean, most paintings that appear whether in museums or in auctions or in collections that are from the period before 1800 are not signed. So they're who they're by, and by extension what they're worth and their importance is something that one has to study, and one has to elicit from a combination of documents, sometimes from what they look like, from the opinions of other scholars, from books and the like. And for the most part, this has been my career in doing it, but with the artists that are pretty obscure, and many of them from the Italian Renaissance and Baroque periods, and they're artists I could mention, and I don't think many of your listeners will have heard of them, but nonetheless, they're of particular interest. And taking an anonymous, say, religious picture and giving it a name does give it a certain historical context and increases the value.
And it takes a lot of research to do that.
It takes a lot of and it takes even more than that, a lot of looking. So one thing that I do always is travel, go to museums, look at painting, have a very good visual memory, and so filing that all away is sort of the key to recognizing. It's a little bit, if you think of it somewhat, when Richard calls you on the telephone, you don't have to ask him who it is. You know from his voice. And if you try to define what it is, whether it's the timbre, his language, it's very hard to put your finger on exactly what it is that tells you it's him or your best friend or anyone else. And it's a little, recognizing the authorship of paintings is a little bit like that. It's a combination of skills. Sometimes it's technical, sometimes it's scientific, a little bit, but it's mostly visual. So I was talking about minor artists, but I was very fortunate, and I think there is a certain bit of luck involved to have discovered a painting that was in an auction in New Orleans. This is about in the year 2005. Not quite fully a question of luck, because I recognized in the auction catalog that it related to a lost painting by Leonardo da Vinci. And with a colleague, we decided to bid on the picture. I had done some research about the picture before the auction, but it was without the expectation that it could turn out to be the lost original painting. Often paintings from this period, especially by famous artists like Leonardo da Vinci, were copied and emulated, and these are artists that, like Leonardo, who had many students that would indeed look at the a painting and try to imitate it. So that's the beginning of it. The painting we purchased for the princely sum of $1,175. So, but then followed what I can only quite a lot 8 years of sweat and research, in which I worked pretty much a little bit, maybe an hour every night, but also consulting with experts, having most importantly working with a painting conservator who very delicately treated the painting, removing overpaint and the like. My part was mostly establishing its history until it was exhibited at the National Gallery in London and accepted by scholars, not 100% in the world, but pretty much 99% as the lost painting by Leonardo.
That's amazing.
And sold for how much?
So the sale price, indeed. I mean, we sold it in the year 2013, and then the purchaser of the painting, the ultimate purchaser of the painting, put it up for auction in 2017, and it brought $450 million. So this is the highest
Wow.
highest price of a work of
So
art.
do you ever go back to the auction house in New Orleans and say, nah, 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 nah?
Was it? So that was from an estate sale, right?
Yes,
So
exactly.
what is the lesson to be learned here?
The lesson is consult a professional. Don't take anything for granted, especially when it's in a field you don't know anything about. I mean, for
Wow.
example, if I inherited some jewelry, well, I know somebody now
Yeah.
to whom to go to, but it's not something that I have the expertise to do. And I think one of the problems that people have generally is that if you're successful in one field, you just kind of presume that you have the knowledge that it extends to every other field, and that's a mistake I think people make. So you have to know your expertise and know your limitations, and even in what I do today, the collegiality and the shared expertise that I have with people in my field and people that are in allied fields is really what sustains me and makes my business function well. For example, I collaborate all the time with painting conservators, but I don't ever attempt to clean a painting myself.
God, no.
Or-
Could you
no.
imagine?
And they're specialists in scholarship in different fields, and one has to recognize that their expertise.
Mm-hmm. We were talking a little bit about building generational wealth
Mm.
via art.
Mm-hmm.
And I had mentioned to you, like Jay-Z, like he talks a lot of times about like investing in certain pieces and how over a period of time they grow in value. So could you talk to our listeners a little bit about how that is an option?
Well, sure. I mean, basically, in my field, which is more of the older art, there's kind of a track record of values of paintings over years, sometimes over centuries, and so in my field, it's the old master in the field of 19th century paintings. There's kind of a steady growth and a steady amount of, but nothing hyperbolic. In contemporary art, and I think that's more what Jay-Z is collecting, things can go boom. I mean, within a couple of years, a young artist can be taken up by the art establishment, collected and these things could go up with tremendous value. The downside of that is that there's no track record. So I'm hoping for his sake and the sake of his family in the future that it will maintain its value and its interest. There's a certain, I guess my only warning to him, if I ever asked my opinion, would just be that the desire for what is really new and the latest can also work against one, because there's always going to be more new,
Mm-hmm.
more contemporary.
Mm-hmm.
But for those people who collect art, it's I always encourage people not to look at it as an investment first, but to look at it as something that you love and that you're interested in and that you get a real response from. But if you collect well, and certainly if one is, again, in another field, having good advice is very important.
Yeah.
In terms of the value and not paying too much for something, or and knowing, having that information, because it can be a very tricky field.
I got to get my art game up. I have one oil painting, and it's from Pier 1 Imports. It's a beautiful painting.
I do want to ask.
Well, you've got a friend now.
I do have to ask
Yeah.
about one thing before we wrap
Yes.
up. I had never seen these before till I went on your website. What is your website?
It's robertsimon.com.
That's pretty tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Go Got?
Go God.
Go Got.
You've got it.
Unbelievable. I'd never even known those existed, and I guess they're very rare and they're expensive, but you have some to sell, right?
Yeah, though this is not a painting. This is not done by the hand of man. These are geological concretions. They'll make it out of silica, and they're made 300,000 years ago, underground in sands near Fontainebleau in France. And they're the most abstract forms. They're just items of spectacular beauty. And I came across them fairly recently. Actually, it was in the Natural History Museum in London. I looked at this thing. I go, what is that? Did some checking, and found out where I could find some, and brought a few to America. And I've sold a couple at the winter show where Kenya had seen my display, but also in my gallery I have a couple. They are a little bit like Rorschach tests in 3D. Each one is quite different, and they're formed from the mixture underground of hot and cold water swirling around and then forming an abstract sculpture. So it's something very different from what I normally work with, but I find them absolutely fascinating.
So I am going to have to come to your gallery. Where is your gallery?
My gallery is on 80th Street near the Metropolitan Museum, 22 East 80th Street in New York, and it's you're most welcome, and either your listeners are as well.
Thank you.
Great. So we need to wrap up this segment and go to a commercial, but you're listening to Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart, and we'll be back for Secrets of the Entrepreneurial Mind coming up next.
Welcome back, listeners. You are listening to Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart and our media maven, Kenya Gipson. And our special guest today was John Jubilee. What a great name, right?
And it's his real name, too. We asked him during the break, and that is his real name. Yeah.
But now it is time for Secrets of the Entrepreneurial Mind. So if there's a secret you're willing to share with entrepreneurs that you feel really helped you, we would love to hear it. John, you're on the hot seat first.
All right. Well, I'm excited. I'm excited to share, what I believe is the number one secret of success of any entrepreneur. Now, it takes a lot of courage to implement a secret. So you can know a secret, but it's another thing to take an action step to actually do something, about it. So it's sort of like if you knew that there's a buried treasure, but you have to go through lots of danger and swamps and crocodiles and jungles and, to get to the secret. But I really believe the secret of entrepreneurial success is to truly acknowledge, what do I love? What am I so passionate about that if I had $1 billion in the bank, this is what I would be doing with my life every day. And then you go and you do that, even if you don't make $1 for a long time. You're willing to pay the price. You're willing to suffer for a moment. When I say a moment, that moment might be 1 year. It might be 10 years, but you're willing to suffer the temporary adversity, the resistance, the setback, to truly own your passion of what you truly love and you want to do. I can honestly say in my life, that's what happened to me, is I actually had the opportunity I had an established 20-year banking career where I could be set for life financially without even thinking about it, or I could truly pursue my passion of what I love to do. And I did do it for 10 years without being paid for it. And I had another job in the meantime, that did actually take care of my bills.
Yeah.
But
well,
today
that's
I'm living it.
Yeah, you are living it. And that is awesome. So, Elaina, what is your secret that you would share of the entrepreneurial mind?
I would share that it's important to get comfortable with being uncomfortable and with the uncertainty. And I think that just comes with the territory of being an entrepreneur. And it's the things that you're most uncertain about sometimes, I think, or the things that make you the most uncomfortable, you're not sure of. That's where you see the most amount of growth within yourself as a person and within your business. So I think it's just getting comfortable with that. And it also helps you to learn how to think on your feet really quickly. And I think that's important as being an entrepreneur.
I agree 100%.
Absolutely.
So, Robert, what is a secret you can share?
Well, I can share those two secrets that I just heard because I think they're both very important, and certainly John's is one that I feel so blessed that I'm doing something that I know about, that I actually studied, that I've loved my whole life. So that's one aspect of it. But I think to add a third secret, it would be, in a way, a two-part one. One is to listen to advice from your friends, and the other part is to feel free to ignore it. And as I look back, even in what I do now, I can think of two really good bits of advice. One had to do with how I should market my paintings to museums across the country. It was recommended that I sort of get a station wagon and put the paintings in it and drive to every little museum. Might have worked well, I don't know, but I think it would have kept me on the road excessively. And of course, in today's world of communications, that we don't really need to have so much physical interaction, it doesn't really make sense. And then the other was that so many people have told me, look, the world is going into contemporary art. That's where you should go. You should change your direction of what you're selling, what you're doing, and really work in that field. And thank God I never did that, because my knowledge and love is in classical, historical art, and because of that, I've become a success in it. But also, I don't feel that I ever had to compromise in a way what my own interests are, and it certainly has paid off in both in financial and commercial ways, but also in personal ways. I'm a very happy man.
Yeah, that's important. That's really good. So, Kenya Gipson, what is your secret?
Well, I don't know if I have a secret, but I definitely have resonated a lot with what John had to say. And it brought me to a quote by a gentleman by the name of Earl Nightingale. And he says that success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. And that, you know, you work hard at something that you really believe in, and you may not see the full picture and how it's all going to work out, but the end reward of that, right, and the process that you're willing to go through will be worth it. And then that leads to the overall fruition of your dreams coming true. So I feel like I've been living that for 20 years in radio. So Lord, if you're listening, I'm still here trucking through, but I believe that all your little efforts lead to the bigger picture, and it works out for you, and you'll be able to live the life of your dreams. So I'm a big believer in that.
That's great.
That's great. Richard Gearhart.
Well, I think I'm going to play off a little bit of what Robert said, and it has to do with listening. I think that being a really good listener is critical to an entrepreneur's success. There are so many places you have to listen. You have to listen to your team. You have to listen to your clients. You have to listen to your market. And so paying attention and really understand what they're thinking and what they're saying and why it's important to them, and understanding things at a deeper level, I think helps you make better decisions as an entrepreneur. So I think listening is important.
Well, and I'm going to say, yes, that's important. And I'm going to do the other half of what Robert said. I'm going to say, I think being a little bit arrogant, you really have, maybe you want to call it confidence. I think you should take it further to arrogance. You really have to, I think, be able to say, this is my thing. I don't care if you think it's not going to fly. I don't care if you think this or that. You haven't researched it as much as I have. You haven't lived it like I have. I think I can make it fly. And you know what? Take your negativity and send it somewhere else.
If I could just add one thing on a very practical level, since a lot of what I'm doing is taking risk and buying pictures that are unclear how they're going to turn out. Part of what I had done before was working for other people, for other dealers, and with other people's money, OPM as it's sometimes called.
I love that.
Yeah, but one has to be so careful doing that. However, when you're doing it on your own and you're taking your own risk, it's liberating, because if I make a mistake, it's my own mistake.
Yep.
And that's a beautiful thing. Of course, if it works out well, it's also my victory. But it's also, but it's something that freedom to have your own mistakes, whether it's in doing that or making a decision, you're responsible for yourself. And if you work for someone else in a position of that responsibility in a way, there's nothing really worse than kind of feeling that you've underperformed and made a bad decision. So I find that freedom to be glorious.
That's a glorious freedom for sure.
Yeah. That's great. Well, that's it for us. Passage to Profit is a national syndicated radio show appearing in 31 markets across the United States. So thank you to the Passage to Profit team, our producer Noah Fleischman, our program coordinator Alicia Morrissey, and Risakat Basari. So look for our podcast tomorrow anywhere you get your podcasts, and our podcast is ranked in the global top 3% of podcasts. How about that? You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Now I guess it's X, right? And YouTube. And for all of your patent, trademark, and copyright needs, our firm Gearhart Law offers free consultations. Contact us at gearhartlaw.com. And while the information provided during this program is believed to be correct, never take a legal step without first checking with your legal professional. That's it for us. We'll see you next week on Passage to Profit.